We're live! Talk to the Internet podcast is live. Hello, everybody.
Whoa, look at that wipe you did. That was cool.
That's pretty sick, right? Yeah, OBS has some Luma wipes baked in there. Oh, it can do shaders now, too. I need to start Googling about that. Man, figuring out, like, fancy things to do in OBS is a dark rabbit hole to fall down, because there's so much there.
Oh, there's a lot. Yeah.
It's so great. I found ways to, like, do keyframed zooms and stuff, which has been around. I just never really looked into it. So, I can do wackiness. Stream production is scary because it can get so much like Dick Van Dyke one-man band. If you just think about, I could just do this, and then I could just do that. And before you know it, you've got like...
I didn't know you could keyframe in OBS.
You can. Yeah, there's a plugin that lets you do it. And essentially you set, same old keyframe thing. You set a start and a stop in regards to all the parameters of a source. So the crop, the positioning, the opacity, all that stuff. So, yeah, cool shit. Let's see here. There's a couple of things that I want OBS to do that I'm not quite sure how to yet. I usually had that list on hand, but this is not an interesting thing to talk about for the audience who is also here. And we are talking to them, the internet that is, because this is the Talk to the Internet podcast. Bruce and Criken, it's very good to talk to you guys again.
Hey, it's good to talk to you too, Lawrence.
Aw, you guys were gabbing about Warhammer, and it was the best.
We were talking about Warhammer. I only know a little bit of it from years and years ago because I would watch my friends paint miniatures and play the game. I didn't actually end up playing. I would just sit there and watch, which was super entertaining, by the way. So I don't know enough, and I feel like Criken is probably our lore master when it comes to Warhammer.
Right. I mean, I've learned everything I knew from both my friends, my chat, and then playing Total War. So I never actually got in it in the traditional, like, old-fashioned way of painting miniatures, but I was trained by my senseis in that world that did that as a hobby growing up. So yeah. I learned a lot from that, and that got me interested. And then I played Total War, and then I could like apply all that knowledge in the lore of these characters and factions, and then I got super into it. So and then we watched like lore videos in chat. That was kind of a fun thing. I'd like stream and we just like put in a window a lore video on a specific part of the Warhammer universe and just like soak it all in while doing something else. So
hell yeah.
Tell us something interesting, Criken. Give us a fun factoid.
Ooh, all right, yeah. So one thing that I didn't realize when I first got into Warhammer is that it's all based on a rough approximation of the different nations of the world. All the different factions are in some way or another kind of representing and geographically located where you would expect, a human nation reminiscent of them to be. So, Sylvania, for example, is where the vampire counts are, and that's where you'd expect. But then, west of them is Germany, which is the Empire, and so the Empire is, the kind of main human faction. And then you've got like in the north is like Norska, which is like the Nords, but also Vikings, the Chaos. And then all the way down south is like the Tomb Kings, who are from Egypt, and then like the jungles of Lustria, I think, are Africa, and you've got like the skinks and the lizard people there, and so based on like what part of the nation you're in, you'll have a totally different. Also, I think like the capital of the Skaven land is Italy, which is like that's a little rough, but it's funny how you can kind of like chop it up roughly, and like Bretonia is France, of course, so it's cool to see.
Wait, shouldn't Bretonia be Britain?
They're actually a mix. Yeah, that's right. Bretonia is a mix of France and Britain. It's like they speak like Frenchmen, but I think a lot of their location and their the chivalry kind of like knighthood aspect are taken directly from British lore, such as like the Lady of the Lake and all that stuff is Bretonia. And it's kind of a mixture of both British and French. I don't know. It's clever, and sometimes less clever. Sometimes it's like very on the nose. Like the Nippon nation is just Japan, and it's like they're all just samurais, and you're like, okay, they didn't try that hard with that one. But like the other ones are pretty clever, I think.
Huh? I don't know why I never realized that some of that stuff was actually allegorical. I should have known. I always assumed Bretonia was Britain. Are there Americans in Warhammer?
I think America would be considered the New World, which is like Lustria, and technically north of Lustria is the Dark Elves, and the Vampirates. There's a whole faction, which is I think my favorite thematic faction in the game, which are vampires that said, "Screw the vampire hierarchy, I'm gonna become a pirate," and they just like moved out to sea and have a rotting vessel filled with undead drowned sailors, and they just like crash into an enemy ship and kill everyone, and then raise them up, and then use that ship to crash into another ship, and they becomes like. So all the pirates out there are just undead, like, monsters.
The vampirates. Are they really called the vampirates?
I call them that. They
better be. Yeah, they better be called that.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of and there's like so many like small anecdotal stories about random lords that just sound so ridiculous, and like it's so tongue in cheek, but also I think that's what fantasy should be, in a lot of ways. So I think that's why I like it so much.
Right on. Well, we got a few interesting questions from the internet here.
Already?
Yeah. Zany Ahmad says, getting married in 2 weeks. Any advice from Big Bro Law Dog and Big Daddy Bruce?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I mean,
oh boy.
I have been married once, and it lasted about 6 months. Yeah.
Mine lasted about 2 years.
Well, Bruce, as the ranking member, the king, the marriage king.
The ranking member.
unless Criken's got a 3-year marriage we don't know about. But hey, I'm not going to pry. I mean, if you wanted to share that with us, you could, but you don't have to, Criken. It's fine. I'll respect your privacy. Okay, well, he's not going to
this.
I was hoping Criken was going to say something there, but I guess not.
I wanted an uncomfortable pause, so thank you for leaning into that one. I don't know. For me, anything I have to say would probably freak you out at this point. I'm debating whether or not to say it. Basically, my situation, which is not yours, but my situation, was such that, I think it's pretty clear that one member was hoping that the marriage would change things, and one member that wasn't me was experiencing, wasn't feeling emotions that she needed to feel. And once it was clear that being married was not going to make those emotions come back, it all fell apart nearly immediately. So, I guess my advice would be that it's a fun event and it's a great moment to, celebrate your relationship together, to get together with friends and family and celebrate all that. But don't, even if in the back of your head maybe you haven't questioned this, but you should question it. Don't think that marriage is going to change your relationship. That sounds so obvious to say.
No, but that's good advice. That's really good. That's really good advice, Lawrence. Because, man, oh man, that's one of those things. So it's a stereotype. It's a cliche where I hear very often. People always joke about, oh, well, if we have a kid, it'll save the relationship. And that's a stereotype, right? And everybody sort of knows that's a joke because, of course, not. A child is only going to add much more stress to a relationship that maybe doesn't need more stress. And it's the same deal with marriage where if you're like, you know what, things aren't really working out. It's like we're always fighting and we're always having a tough time. Let's get married. It's like, no. Work the stuff out first with couples therapy or self-help books or, a combination of all those things. But Lawrence is 100% correct. Your relationship is not going to drastically change because of a child or marriage or whatever else.
Yeah, I don't think external factors will make. Yeah. If there's a dark thread, you got to deal with that first. It could be so easy to not. What's scary is my ex-partner would talk about having kids, and then when everything was falling apart, I was like, why did you even say that? God, could you imagine if we actually did have a child, and that would have complicated everything. And then she just basically said, I thought it would fix things, and I just didn't reply to that because I was like, how can people, for one, you think you know a person, and you think you know that their head's in a certain space, but man, I remember hearing that and being like, oh my God, that almost happened. That almost happened. That's life, but pretty crazy stuff.
Criken, I want to hear some relationship advice from you.
Nope. Veto.
Oh, man.
Criken wisely, I think, has a good cage around his soul, and I appreciate that.
But I know Criken to be a wise man. That's why I'm asking.
right? That's why you got to pay if you want to.
Oh, shit.
If you're good
Like,
at
I've
something,
decided-
don't do it for free.
I'm taking up a life consultancy position. If someone
What,
needs
life
you know-
coach?
That's what that is. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering if there's a word for it.
Life coach.
What are your rates, Criken? Because I could use some life coaching.
I don't know, like 10%
Of what?
Of my life?
of whatever you make. Yeah, I'm your life coach, right?
All of it? Okay.
Wait a minute. What? Holy shit. Wait, 10% of my relationship too? So do you get 10% of my like sex?
We can figure out the details.
You know what's challenging? So anyone when they go self-employed, and I promise this relates to Criken's 10% off the top. So when you have to go out into the open market and you're a contractor or whatever, and you have to tell somebody your rate, that can be really challenging because at least I want to be humble, and I to some degree kind of chronically devalue myself. Mm-hmm. So I typically ask for really low rates, and also if it's a new field, you got to establish all that stuff. But eventually, you want to drive your rates up. But that initial phase of trying to figure out your value on the open market can be really, really challenging.
Yeah.
Now let's flip it. All right. Let's say we exist in a world with zero sexual stigma, and you have to put your sexual prowess on the open market, kind of like a cameo or whatever. I will come to your house and sexually service you. How would you appraise monetarily your ability to provide a good experience for people in that regard? Because I think I would, as my producer side would come out, I would come over with sparklers and roses. Like I would try to get all the window dressing in line so that my actual performance is not really being scrutinized. I want to blind somebody so much. It's like it's a bit of a magician, smoke and mirrors. So by the time I leave, they're just dumbfounded. But I didn't really do all that much.
Follow the hand, and it's over.
Basically, that would be my get down. And I think for that, once the zebras clear out and the ringleader has left the house, I think my asking could probably be around $750 for a magical hour, a whirlwind Lawrence sexual extravaganza that has very little sexual contact in it. I think I could do that.
750, huh?
Again, I'm devaluing, aren't I?
You are devaluing it.
I think you are. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to pay all these contractors.
I've personally never been in a sexual experience with you yet, Lawrence. So I can't say for sure if you are devaluing it. So I don't want to make any assumptions here. I'm just
Criken, how much? How much for you?
He just said he didn't want to talk about it.
How much? Put a price on it.
$2,000.
$2,000. That seems like a lot.
But I'm going to be in there throwing off the bell curve with like
value
fire
myself.
breathers and stuff. I'm going to have trapeze artists, Criken, swinging from people's rooftops.
Here's the deal. I don't go for those chintzy $2,000, $750, none of that shit. I was once, I think I told this is an actual real story that's going to lead into a joke, but this is a real story that happened to me when I was like 14. I was calling around for a job because I was like, I could get a job. It's like a temporary work permit. And my parents were like, are you sure you want to start working? I was like, yeah, I do. So I started calling around, literally in the yellow pages. This is way back. And I would call places and be like, hey, do you need a clerk or what, an entry level job? And once I asked the guy, I was like, oh, do you need this? And he was like, oh yeah, how much do you want to get paid? And I was like, oh, well, I don't know. I'm not really I'm not experienced. I don't really have much, blah, blah, blah. And the guy almost started yelling at me. He said immediately, you cannot undervalue yourself ever. He was like,
good advice.
He was like, if anybody ever asks you this again, you need to shoot high. He said, if somebody else asks you, you need to say, $20 an hour or whatever, something way higher than you actually feel like you're going to get paid, because that's how you negotiate. And
and it's like, if you're starting here, you're only ever going to be talked down here. No one's going to talk you up.
They're not going to talk you up.
To pay you what you're worth. You have to start, at least where you're at, if not above it.
It was terrific advice that I received when I was very, very young. All that said, $10,000 for a sexual experience with Bruce Green.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's confidence.
Well, Bruce, you bring up an interesting thing, because the second you said $10,000, I was like, that must be incredible.
See, that's what I'm saying. You get what you pay for.
And then once you paid for it, people tend to reverse justify value from what they pay.
Yeah,
So
100%.
you get somebody to drop $10K on a Bruce evening, and no matter what, on the tail end of it, they're probably going to think it's pretty great. Bruce, I remember you saying something similar with like tech. People would buy really expensive TVs, and then they would need to believe that they were great.
That's like it's called. There's a name for it. It's like price justification or price rationalization, where you would buy a really expensive television, and then since they spent a lot of money on it, it didn't matter what any of the reviews said. They're like, well, no, my TV's great. I spent $8,000 on it. Well, that's not what the reviews say. And so reviews are supposed to be unbiased, whereas somebody who just spent $8,000 on a television is clearly not. So
That's true.
And it's funny you bring that up, because people will bring up the fact that reviewers don't have to pay for things as reasons that they're biased. You know? These fat cats are out there. They didn't have to sacrifice. They didn't have to put down any money. They just got a thing, and then they can just wave it away or be overly critical of it.
But generally, that's not the way that works. So especially with expensive stuff. I mean, I did this for a living for 5 years with expensive televisions, like $8,000 televisions, which I would review on a regular occasion. You send those back immediately once you're done. So you watch them for a week, and then that's it. You put it all back in the box and send it on back to Samsung. So never get to keep it. Yeah.
I guess then it maybe goes into like the event circuit and goes into Samsung booths or something. I always wonder where those trade-offs go.
Lawrence, you're totally right. That's exactly where it goes. Yeah.
Somebody asked if my face is on the shirt I'm wearing, and yes, it is.
I remember that shirt.
I did a rip-off of the Macintosh cover. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only one person at all of Rooster Teeth identified it, and I think it was Jacob at one of the Let's Play reunions. And such a weird moment, because I remember, like, I was trying my hardest to get drunk while working my ass off. And I was, like, in the garage because I guess there was some rule about consuming alcohol on camera. And then Fareed was, God bless him, trying to prevent me from getting slobberingly drunk. But somehow in that navigation, like, Jacob just rolled up and he's like, Macintosh. Bit of a ripoff, isn't it? I was like, yeah. And that was basically the extent of our interaction.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Wait, was that at the beach house and the reunion thing?
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember we were in the garage, like, chugging drinks and then getting back on camera and doing a shtick.
Yep.
By the end, it had devolved, though, because everyone was drunk. And so they just started bringing drinks on camera, and they were like, and they just, the entire thing was just careening down as, like, it was clear that there was just, we were heading towards disaster. But it was fun. There were good times there.
There were.
Yeah, there were. Nothing bad happened there, I don't think.
Not that I know of.
Not that I know of either.
That's not ominous, but
Yeah, it did.
Nowadays you never know, I guess.
To me, the only thing that I was a little... Like, my entire life is trying to recreate the ending of The Wizard, I'll be honest. That stupid little tournament sequence. Something to me is innately comedic about the bombast of video games. About, like, an audience cheering and somebody just sitting up there, and then it goes to the screen and just whoop, whoop, and then the points go up. Ah! I don't know. I know that esports are a lot more established than that, but I do love pairing ostentatious, overproduced bullshit with bleepy bloop video game that doesn't matter. So I remember trying to do that in like the like N64 roulette at the end of that. What I didn't realize is that after being on camera for 12 hours, everybody was going to be tired and completely uninterested and uninvested. So I remember sitting there like trying to be high energy and everyone else is like taking a nap, and I'm like, damn it. And it makes sense. Like, you can't do anything about it. Aside from maybe
people drank for 12 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. It was I guess it was strange because, like, ideally those events were like so we could get to know all the people in the network, and for that it was really helpful and super useful, because Criken, we had some really good conversations and stuff. I really appreciated that. But then there was also this weird sense of like there were cameras everywhere. So it was almost like being on a reality show for a little bit.
You go and be on, and then you like walk 2 steps into the garage and you're just pounding drinks and like getting to know someone, and you're like, all right, let's go, and you go back on and you're like, look at me. So it's and because like they also have like the roaming camera, so sometimes you'd be somewhere else in the house and like just like hanging out, and then the camera comes by and now you're on again, and it's like, I didn't think I was on.
Hey, funny stuff.
So
we're talking about just for anybody that's wondering, we're talking about the Let's Play family reunion which I think was the last one they did that year.
Yeah, they did 2 that I know of that year, right? And then that was the second one, unless there was a third. Was there one?
That one
for like
that one was spring of 2018, I want to say. But yeah, that's what it is. They basically put a bunch of gaming groups together, like Achievement Hunter and Funhouse and man, what was Criken? What was your name? Sideshow.
I don't know. Are you allowed to say
Sideshow.
it? Didn't that?
No, I mean we can. Man,
We've gone over this narrative before. I remember.
I think so. I should probably honestly just like have a whole breakdown of it at some point, but it's just kind of a mess of branding, I think, and also on our side, taking responsibility. So the members of this group that we put together in RT was myself, Bed Bananas, and Tomato, all of which really good friends, still good friends. That all of this hasn't changed any of that. Nothing about the Sideshow kind of de-evolution was about that. It was more, we all signed with Rooster Teeth, and then as part of that, it's like, oh, let's make a group, and because that's what you do when you're in Rooster Teeth, you make a group. And so we were like, all right, we're making a group, but we're all going to be individual channels still, and I'll do our own thing, but also sometimes we'll do stuff together. But we were already doing stuff together, so like there wasn't really a catalyst or like a specific thing drawing it together. So, and we kind of naively assumed that Rooster Teeth would like provide that, or like there would be some structure to that or some branding that they would magically whip up that would then unite us. But essentially ended up being just like we went on the family reunion and we're like, surprise, here we are, this is our thing. And then we just went back to doing what we were doing, and it was like, okay, I guess that was fun. So yeah, I don't know. Every once in a while someone comes in and like assumes there's this big conspiracy or story, and it's like there really isn't. It was just a poorly planned out thing that I think could be really cool. But we would have to sacrifice a lot on our individual channels and stuff to get there.
How many T-shirts did you sell?
So that was the other thing. So this actually is what began our kind of disassociation from the brand. The moment we launched it, Rooster Teeth had accidentally capped the amount of them available on the website to 12. So we immediately sold out, and we're like, awesome. Like we sold out. And then we called, and they're like, yeah, so we forgot to like uncap it with everything we have in the warehouse. So we only sold 12, and now people can't get them anymore. And so right away we were just like, what are we doing? So not a great start.
I remember that. I didn't know it was 12. I knew there was a cap, but I didn't know it was 12.
It was 12. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, wait, who are the lucky 12 people that got that shirt?
I got a couple pictures. I think I got 12 pictures, a few months later, and I was like, there they are. So it's a limited edition.
That's really limited edition.
Yeah.
I remember my memory of the debut of that brand was that I had a big old chalkboard to like write people's scores on, and I abbreviated all of the
Oh no, I remember.
So GA, Game Attack, Funhouse, FH, Achievement Hunter H, and I was like, let's have the new group in here. So Sideshow, I innocently just put a little SS up there. Had it all there, and then I was writing it out, then I was getting ready to go, and then Fareed just kind of walks up and then just erases the SS, and I'm like, why did you do that? And then he looked at me, and then I looked at it, and then I was like, oh.
That never at any point did that come up in any of the meetings we had upon setting up the group. So it's funny. I think when you wrote that, and like Fareed either told me about it or I saw it, that was the first time that also clicked for me too. We were just like, oh
no,
that's not good, huh?
I hope you sold 12 shirts with the SS abbreviation on it.
No, Bruce, we didn't actually. We never made a abbreviated logo because that would just be a hate crime, and I don't think we're the type of people to do that.
Well, there was a weird running gag from Austin of trying to conflate the Funhouse logo with the fucking swastika, and I was like, why are you guys doing that? Why
Oh,
do
yeah,
you
that's
keep
right.
doing that? Stop
I forgot
it.
about that. Yeah.
And then people
They-
would
for a
like
long
send
time.
us orange and black swastikas and it'd be like, hey, it's
That's
funny.
right.
I'm like, stop it. What the fuck?
That was not funny.
No, it
What was-
wasn't.
Who did that bit come from? Was that
I don't know
think it
because I
was-
didn't want to know. But
I thought it was initially Achievement Hunter, but I mean, like, I could be wrong. Either way, it was one of those things where, like, it was a funny joke at first, and then I was the more that it happened, the more we were like, maybe don't do this. We're all associated with the same brand. You
yeah,
know, like,
that seems like a nuke waiting to go off that you're planning yourself within the same company. That's just a bad idea.
yeah.
Oh, it was a theater mode thing? Like, it ran away from them? Yeah, well, that's why you got to be careful about the jokes you make. Then again, you know, whatever. We were all pretty edgy, so. Yeah, Achievement Hunter made the joke first on a podcast, then Achievement Hunter fans made the joke for a good 5 straight years. Yeah. That's
how it happens.
when the mere
Yeah.
appearance of a swastika is a joke unto itself. Maybe you got to examine your humor a little bit. Not to Achievement Hunter, but like, geez. Like, jokes have construction. Jokes have a setup and a payoff.
Yeah.
Thing look like thing, especially if that thing is bad. I don't know that that's humor, but whatever. That's okay. It's not for me to
Wow.
tell people what is and isn't funny. Except, well, dang it. I promised I wasn't going to be pretentious Lawrence today. And there I go
That's
doing
okay.
it again.
That's all right. That's what, you know what? That's just a part of you.
Never again.
And if that comes along with that $750 sexual experience, I'm fine with it.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, Bruce. As a means of atonement, I'm slashing my price
Ooh.
to $500.
Discount.
Yeah. To make up for the wild pretense that I've just shown on this podcast.
Use code SIDESHOW for a discount on Lawrence's.
Shut the fuck up. You want to know? You want to know the real? There was another reason. I actually have not talked about this publicly yet. There was another reason
I didn't know that. Okay, all right, yeah.
that caused us to have to shut it down. Either that or go through a rebranding within, I think, 3 weeks of starting, which didn't make any sense. Right before we did our first podcast, because we were planning this podcast for a long time, we went through a lot of effort to prepare it. Literally 30 minutes before we go live with it, I receive a cease and desist letter from the Sideshow figurine company, saying,
Sideshow Collectibles, right?
"Yep." They're like,
Yeah.
"We heard you're trying to do a podcast. You're not allowed to do this podcast." And that is a hell of a bomb to drop on 3 friends that decided to, get together and have, a little talk and hang out. And so we had to go along with starting the podcast because we had already announced it and like people were already waiting. There were like thousands of people waiting to watch this thing. And we were just a mess the entire time because we were like,
What are we going to do?
yeah, like this is we're already being like torpedoed before even beginning. And so that killed any, real motivation, I think, to keep like this group idea alive when we were already just hanging out together. It's like, why are we even doing this? So
Yeah.
it made it easier just to kind of dissolve it, which is a shame because I think it could have been a lot of fun. But yeah, no, God, man, that I still remember that email today. What a fucking awful timing.
I didn't realize there were, because I knew that you guys had issues with that launch, but I didn't realize it was like so many things within the span of just a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Well, how discouraging is that? Ugh.
Well, I have a good-natured question, Criken. Wouldn't Rooster Teeth take care of the cease and desist?
Good
Right?
question. Seeing as how they launched the brand,
They have a legal department and they created the brand for you, so surely they'd get your back there.
I do remember sending that email and asking, and they said no. in short, it's not our problem.
All right, well,
So
them's the
we
breaks.
kind of, just let it fizzle away.
How
Well,
strange. Perhaps
you-
there was another. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? I was curious if you guys had like other tales of almosts. And at this point, hopefully they're years past. So I've got one to offer. Oh man, I think it was like in 2010. I quit machinima for the first time. Moved back to Dallas area. Again, the goal was to get married and have kids and just be a nice suburban dad. I actually went on interviews. The site shut down now, but when they were about to launch US Gamer, the like US version of Eurogamer, I actually interviewed with them a couple times to be like a news deputy editor or something. And then to their great loss, they didn't hire me for some reason, which kind of led me into picking up video editing and then moving back to LA after my marriage fell apart. But if they had hired me then, that probably would have put me on a whole other track of just doubling down on written games media. And I'm pretty sure I would not be nearly as happy as I am now. But yeah, it's a good thing they didn't offer me writing then. But that probably would have been a good fit for a couple years. But man, written has gone in a direction since then. But that would have been cool. I'm gonna say it now. I'm gonna go on record. If they had hired me, US Gamer would now be the #1 gaming news outlet instead of not existing.
Wow. Instead of not existing.
Oh, damn it. Fuck, I got to cut my rates again now. Shit. All right.
Why?
Because I wasn't humble again. Damn it. Pretentious Lawrence
right.
back. Okay, fine. Down to $250 for an hour. Just to make it good.
Use code US Gamer
Yes.
for 75% off your rate.
Woo. Shit, man. I'm losing money on my sexual performance now.
You are definitely losing money on this. 100%.
How am I gonna pay all these contortionists? Damn. The lube costs alone, Bruce, $200 a night. Those barrels are not easy to find.
I'm just gonna go into debt to give someone else a good sexual experience and then disappear.
That's the ultimate in humility.
I was gonna say that, my friends, is a hero. That's what that is. That's not somebody who's losing money and possibly homeless. That's a hero.
Do you think once I get fully bankrupted that I could run a GoFundMe? So my goal is, through these wildly underpriced sexual performances, that I curry enough goodwill with the people of the world that when I can no longer afford food and get thrown out of my place, that I can just throw up a GoFundMe and people will be willing to pay me back for all the sacrificing I did for them.
What you're basically describing is oh God. No, what is that?
Wait, what are you talking about?
Movie. The Christmas movie.
I mean that's what, like It's a Wonderful Life?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're a wonderful life. You're like, I'm gonna invest everything into the people around me and make them love me. And then one day, when I've got no money, they're gonna give me all their money, and then I'll be uber rich.
It's a pyramid scheme? Is that what you're talking about?
I guess, but in playing with empathy and people's expectations and love of you instead of a get rich quick scheme.
Can you do me a favor?
Like get rich long.
That's just called working.
Yeah, that's just called life. So I imagine, because by the way, I've never seen It's a Wonderful Life. Can someone describe to me the plot of It's a Wonderful Life? Because I've never seen it. I have no idea.
Yeah, I got you. I watched it actually this last Christmas, and I saw it once when I was a kid, but it was a lot more meaningful just recently. Basically, the whole plot is like there's this guy who is really troubled and is considering killing himself and is pretty much about to go through with it. And then an angel sees him and is like, I got this. I'm going to convince him his life's worth living.
Okay.
And so he flies down and, first we kind of see his entire life leading up to this point. So everything leading up to this point is him sacrificing all of his wants and dreams in order to support the people around him, be it his family, be it his town. His father ends up dying, and then he takes over the family business, even though he wanted to go to college and travel and explore. So his whole life, he's constantly putting his own wishes on the back burner to support those around him, even to the point where rather than getting rid of his family business, he invests his own money to pay a loan out to basically all of their clients when there was a mishap. They didn't have enough money on hand and otherwise would have had to go bankrupt. So he's constantly like giving everything, and he's getting in his head that he's a failure because everyone around him is succeeding, but he's not, because he's always been supporting others. And so he's about to kill himself one night. At this point, he has, he thinks he basically screwed up and has caused everything he's worked for his entire life to go away, and his wife and kids will hate him and everything like that. So he's about to kill himself, and then the angel's like, okay, you wish you weren't here. let me show you what this world would have been like if you were never born. And they walk through all of these different scenarios and all these people that we've come to know and love from his life, and see how worse off they are by not having him in their life and not having his generosity and his guidance. And so at the very end, when he thinks, he's brought back into the real, day, and he's thankful suddenly for all the things he was taking for granted, that people didn't care about him. And so he comes back to them and he's like, all right, you know what? No matter what happens, we're going to figure it out. And in that like moment where it looks like they're still going to lose everything, but at least he, isn't going to kill himself, the whole town comes in and pays back what he had loaned them and more, and basically allows him to pay off the debt that he has, unrightfully accrued based on, the actions of the evil people. Or there's like a bad guy in the town that caused it. But, it's like a really wholesome ending, and I cry every time, and it's like really sweet. So
I gotta watch this movie. I mean, like, I knew I'd like this movie, but now I definitely have to. I didn't know. I never knew what it was about.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
Yeah.
I remember seeing like an analysis of it, and it basically described that. So the main character is played by George Bailey is the main character's name. What is his actor's name?
James Stewart.
He was a war hero. He went to war against the wishes of Hollywood, basically, and then fought in the Air Force and saw a lot of combat, and then came back and was had serious PTSD. And so a lot of this his performance in this, you can actually see he goes into dark places, and it's really sobering to watch.
Wow. I know it's a classic, and it has been for many, many years. So, what's my problem? Why haven't I seen this movie? Shit.
It's a good one.
Bruce, if I could add a little bit, maybe to really help you resolve the emotional resonance of the scene at the end, because it is great when everyone comes out of the woodwork to support you, right? But to me, the thing I think most encapsulates that moment is, if you'll recall, at the end of one of my favorite films, Star Wars Episode 9, when the call goes out and none of the spaceships are responding, right? And you just think, oh man, what's going to happen? There's all these ships that are going to blow up the galaxy, and there's all these Emperor clones. And there's Lando alone.
Right. He's alone, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then all the ships show up, right?
Wait, why? Tell me why, though.
Because they decided to help.
Because they loaned money. Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, no. You're talking about the other movie.
They loaned it, galactic credits, and then everyone showed up, and then they shot the little dangly bits on the planes, and it, it's basically like the end of It's a Wonderful Life. So
it is.
As good as you felt at the end of Episode 9, that's how good maybe you'll feel when you finish It's a Wonderful Life.
Lawrence, I saw that movie once and did not feel good when I walked out of it.
Oh, well, maybe you missed that part then. The part at the end when all the ships show up.
Did you see the part at the end when everyone showed up, Bruce?
I did, and I went, "Why are they there?" I went, "They managed to find hundreds of thousands of ships in, I think, one day."
Well, they put out the broadcast to the galaxy, Bruce.
But in one day,
there's the radio channel that everyone listens to in case of this scenario, and they just went on it happened. Meet us here. And they're like, okay.
The radio channel that everybody listens to in case the Emperor comes back to life and has thousands of Star Destroyers.
Well, what's great, and to me really lends to the believability of it, is that through episodes 7 and 8, nobody knew that the Emperor was back. But in one day, everyone in the galaxy knows that he is back. And they gotta strap some guns to their ships and go blow up some danglies.
The radio channel. You guys are constantly forgetting about this radio channel. One radio channel. Got one purpose. Activate if Palpatine is back.
I forgot.
It activates. Let's go.
If somebody described to me the plot of The Rise of Skywalker, because I don't remember any of it. So I think if you just read it to me, I would feel like I was watching a brand new movie, because I got rid of all of it from my head.
Babu Frick is still in there, right?
Movie at all, actually.
Remember that?
I remember Babu Frick. Yes, I do remember Babu Frick.
Babu Frick.
Remember? Unfortunately, I remember that.
Yep. Good times with Babu.
Is it true that? I guess we're into spoilers, but the Emperor Did he only show up in the last movie?
Yes.
Why?
Because episode 8 didn't establish any kind of villain.
So, what I had heard, I've read a lot of stories. I've read a lot of stories about, like the development of these 3 movies and what happened, and this could be an amalgamation of a bunch of them. But what I'd heard was that, like initially, when J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy were talking about Episode 7, Force Awakens, they were pushing toward that, the Emperor. And I guess when they handed off development to Rian Johnson for Episode 8,
he didn't.
He was just
piece
like,
of paper slipped from the stack. Like it was a memo, and it just fell apart. And like, oh, I forgot that part. I forgot to include that in the movie.
But what's interesting about that, though, is that Kathleen Kennedy had always been there, and she was always in charge of this. Mm-hmm. So she should have been the one to be like, "Hey, the Emperor," but they didn't. And I think. And then also, Colin Trevorrow was supposed to be doing Episode 9 instead of J.J. Abrams. And I think Colin Trevorrow had even something more different planned. So, like, I think that whole thing had been scrapped. I don't think the Emperor was ever supposed to show up after Episode 8. But then since J.J. Abrams was brought back, I feel like, it was...
He brought it back? Oh, God.
I mean, like, I don't know.
With multiple directors under a franchise.
Yeah. Well, no, truthfully, that's it's not the multiple directors thing, because Kevin Feige does it great with Marvel. So it was just the fact that there was no one lead visionary, or Kathleen Kennedy was supposed to be, but she wasn't. So
well, I apologize in getting us off on that tangent. I just really like dunking on Episode 9 when the opportunity presents itself.
It's real easy.
It is.
It's real easy.
You know what it is though. It's like I have lately. I don't know. In some ways, I think it's me getting older, but I'm losing my taste for like easy dunks, despite still taking them. So I think I need to start examining that behavior pattern in myself. You know, I can't criticize other people for being pointlessly negative if I'm doing it too.
I don't. Yeah, I try not to. There are a few things you can easily dunk on. One of them being Michael Jackson. I'll dunk on Michael Jackson all day.
But he can dance though.
Because he's a terrible, terrible person. So I could easily dunk on Mike. Oh, same with R. Kelly.
What a specific 2 people. Like, there's a lot of bad stuff out there, and you're like, no, these are the top of my shit list.
Well, because they're just so bad. And they've been so bad for so long. I mean, we're talking 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's just like Cosby. Yeah, another one. There's another one.
That's such a strange. Sometimes I am fascinated and to some degree really concerned about the people who have been allowed to just be horrible people out in the open. I thought you had to at least be a little cloak and dagger about it, but yeah, you go back and see some of that R. Kelly stuff or Michael Jackson stuff, and no, everyone knew.
Well, there's a lot of this attitude of like, oh, that's just who they are. Like it's like if they're famous and you're like orbiting them in some way as in their career, then like getting a warning from someone is enough that like, okay, we acknowledge that they're a shitty person, let's not do anything about it. Like it's such a, I don't know, I mean I think that's changed a fair bit. Well, hopefully it has, but at least there's been some repercussions for actions now.
There is now. Harvey Weinstein, another great example. Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know if you guys have read the Marilyn Manson stuff recently.
Yeah, he got booted off of everything.
But what's interesting about that, Lawrence, what you just said is that people have known it for years about this guy. Like, obviously, yeah, he's always been, edgy or whatever, but he has been saying terrible things about abusing significant others for years and years and years. And people were just ignoring it.
I mean, there's a trade-off there. It's to some degree, like, I guess it's disingenuous for me to affect such naivety about how these situations arise, because I think I have a bit more understanding of it now, how like it gets complicated. And that sounds bad because like if someone's doing something shitty, they should be called out on it. And it gets very easy to say that in a vacuum. But when you're dealing with it in a real situation where like real people will be affected, and there's all kinds of like trickle down effects from trying to call something out. Not to mention that if the atmosphere's not right, people can ignore it. Like at large, people can just ignore bad stuff. And if you like try to call something out or stand for the right thing at the wrong time, and no one cares or no one's in the mood to hear it, you basically just burn yourself alive, and that doesn't really help anyone either. I can kind of get it, how like some of these things, people that have public visibility do have a bit of insurance. If they have like positive sentiment gathered up, and you can see this all the time, somebody can get called out on something, it can be on camera. And people will still defend them or try to believe the best in them just because they have a positive association. So there's a tax to trying to make justice happen. It doesn't happen for free. So I kind of get it.
Yeah.
And that's a lot to ask of any one individual that's feels like a small person being crushed under this huge thing. The Assistant is a phenomenal movie about this. The Assistant, huh? I'll have to look that up. Also, yeah, I mean, Dr. Levin, there's like... I'm astounded that, I really don't want it to go to like political things, but just on the surface level, we had somebody bragging about sexual assault on mic, and it didn't do anything. Or maybe it did something, but yeah, it's nice to believe that if you put the truth out into the universe, the universe will respond in kind, and that's not always the case. And I think to some degree, It's a Wonderful Life touches on some of those things, not necessarily the like cult of celebrity and how that can insulate people from consequences, but just more about like, man, the world is not, there's no machine making sure that everything turns right. It's all down to people and their decisions and the actions they make. And that's kind of what makes the world turn, not just believing that bad things happen to bad people and good things happen to good people.
Yep.
Cinnamon Guy says, from personal experience, it's incredibly hard to report pedophilia. I wasn't the victim, and it was still hard to muster the courage to say something. Yeah. It's tough because even if a system or people's ways of living is less than ideal, and even if those systems include somebody who should suffer some kind of punishment not getting it, it's very difficult to be the one person to say, I'm going to upend all of this and disrupt everyone's lives. And bring this information out, because then everyone, then you become the target. From people who don't want to believe it, and then the people who are trying to disprove it.
Especially in a case like that, when you're taking away someone's choice or agency to say something, like you're making the decision for them, and it's like they can't really make that decision themselves because they're underage and they're not, able to.
Right.
You're still the one putting them in the way of public attention or whatever it might be. So yeah, that's a really hard place to be.
It is. You have to put something. You have to put trust into something that's made you distrustful. Very good way of saying it. Sorry, Bruce. I didn't mean to cut you off. But that's
no, I was just reading another comment from chat. The Wimplo said, "I was a victim and I didn't say anything till I was 18," and that's very, very common. Like some people who are victims, they sit on it for so long because I don't know this for a fact, but generally it's repressed. Your brain wants to repress it because it's a bad memory. So it's like, just get rid of it. We don't want to think. We don't want to think about it. We don't talk about it. And obviously, it always comes up later in other things. So usually, therapy or some other sort of event will trigger that thing, and then you have to face it again. And that's why a lot of people don't report stuff right away. Because I see that often. I see that the excuse of, well, why didn't you just report it right away? Well, it's not that easy. As a human being with emotions and feelings, it isn't that easy just to be like, oh, something bad happened, I'm going to go report it right away. Like, no way. Sometimes it takes years.
Yeah, not to mention, in those scenarios, it's people who haven't lived under a certain kind of trauma questioning the actions of people that have. And if anything changes the way you feel and think and operate, it's trauma. So that's something that it took me a couple of years of kicking around on this planet to understand, is that I'm not allowed to question the actions of people who have lived through a thing I haven't. Maybe to some degree. I mean, there's limits to everything, but yeah, you can't you can't do it, but it's on some level it's hard to blame people for doing it, because it's, to me, that's somebody trying to empathize but failing to. So
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know how you bridge that gap of being like, well, if I were in that scenario, I would simply do blank. It's like, well, you're not, and you may not do
different.
that.
Everybody's different. Everybody's got all sorts of different backgrounds and experiences, and they all play into that. So
Crazy stuff. We got to some pretty heavy things there.
hey, I have a really light question for you guys.
Yeah?
Criken, do you have any GameStop stock?
Nope.
Oh, come on, Criken.
I tried to get involved, but it was the day that everything had shut down, and then I made a Fidelity account, and then
Good for you.
was shutting down because there were some people trying to buy something. So
that's what happened.
At that point, I was just like, okay, I'll just wait till this is over. But I am interested in learning stocks now.
Lawrence, what about you?
No, I am a boring investor. I make long-term investments.
Well, so do I. But did you go buy GameStop stock? Come on, Lawrence.
Not really, no.
Come on.
Well, okay, so
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, by the way.
I am 100%.
I'm totally joking.
I 100% support the peasant uprising. I am all about civil disobedience, and I am all about making rich people cry. Yeah, no, and I respect it. I respect people that are absolutely willing to lose big just to stick it to assholes. Like, especially with hedge funds, man. To me, as much as people will decry about how philosophically some things are anti-corporate or anti-capitalist, I don't know how a hedge fund's allowed to exist because it doesn't generate GDP. Maybe it does, but it does in the cracks of everything else. So it doesn't actually produce anything valuable for anybody. It's a cup and shell game that allows people to make money for doing nothing. So I don't respect it. So I'm okay with people losing money that do it. And I respect the heck out of people who are doing it, but I'm also where my head's at now is I don't want to be risky with money because I'm trying to scale up my private business operations to hire and pay people.
Of course, yes.
So when it comes to and that's a real adult decision. Do you burn money to stick it to rich assholes, or do you keep the money to pay it to poor people?
Yeah,
poor people.
In my head, the world is neatly divided in between rich and poor, and never in the middle will anyone exist. So, unless you have multiple real estate properties, you are poor. That is
right. If you are looking for a job, you're poor. If you don't need a job, you're rich.
There you go. That's it.
Uh-oh. Well, Criken, what if I'm in the position where I could electively, I could take 2 weeks off and probably be fine? Does that make me poor or rich?
You're rich for the time you're taking off, and then as soon as you need to go back to work, you're poor again. Everything is a finite amount, and it's constantly fluctuating.
Lawrence, I'm gonna blow your mind right now. What if you bought GameStop stock and you made even more money so that you could employ more people? What about that? You ever think about that? I bet you didn't.
No. I actually did because I was thinking man, if I could turn a chunk of money on this, then that would pay for a couple of months of operation, and that's something I wouldn't even have to think about. Yeah. But at the same time, those months are basically covered through my normal operations anyway. So, and maybe Criken, maybe this makes me a rich person more than anything else. But my concept of money and what it does and how to use it has shifted drastically since becoming self-employed and working with other people. I don't want to cut my sexual rates anymore, so I'm not going to make myself out to be a hero, even though I totally
use
am.
code GameStop.
Bruce, I'm so in the hole on this. I haven't even gotten in the hole yet, and I'm already in the hole. You know what I mean? My business operations are hemorrhaging right now, squirting, if you will. But you're right. I kind of think about it more in terms of, money here is money there, and money there does a thing, and as long as I have that, I can keep that going. And so getting a windfall, a one-time windfall, doesn't actually change what I want to do, but losing a chunk of money would. So I kind of have to. I just have to tread water. So it'll shoot me out of the water, but I'll still fall back in. Whereas if I lose that money, I'll go under, and that's really bad. So that's kind of why I don't really play around with too many short-term gambling style investments. I'm much more, I have a Vanguard account, and I have a retirement account that I think is set to mature in 2065, which is a year I don't even want to think about. But yeah, I'm just throwing money into that. That's kind of it. So
that's good. Well, that's all really good.
Yeah, I'm not relying on a single social program to take care of my ass when I get old, because we'll see. Hopefully I'll still be able to buy food.
I don't. I assume the same, Lawrence. I don't know if you guys. I've been following it for as long as it's developing, and honestly, like I follow this stuff anyways. Like this is something that I read about on a daily basis, and so I got to watch it all explode, which was really fun, by the way, because it that kind of stuff doesn't really happen in stocks. Usually, stocks are pretty boring. There's very little volatility. Cryptocurrency, there's a ton of volatility, but not in stocks. So stocks is just kind of like it went up 2% or it went down 1% or whatever. And that's why this was super interesting. I don't know if you guys have any questions about it. It is exciting to see people like you, I guess not Lawrence, but Criken and other people get into it because of this. Get into investing because of this, because investing is super, super important.
Yeah,
I feel like everybody should know what it is at least.
I've had money in the stock market since I started making YouTube videos. So that was like, I don't know, I was 15, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was more of like a put it in there and forget about it fund. And then during COVID last year, I took it out because I was like, there's no way this is going to be good for the stock market.
Little did you know.
Yeah, apparently.
How disparate the performance of the market can be from the economy at large.
Yeah.
You just got to make money and give it to rich people, and the stocks are fine.
I have no idea.
Sorry, I'm not an economist. I shouldn't be saying shit like that.
But that's also part of the reason why it put me off from getting into it was like the market's just doing things intuitively against what I would think it should do. And therefore, why would I would just be giving my money to someone and just trusting that they know what they're doing. And it's like,
it's wild.
It's hard for me to trust like that right now. So I was like, I'm going to keep my money over here. And then when I'm motivated that I actually feel like I can tackle this, then maybe I'll get into it again. And then seeing it, the way I see it, this whole phenomenon, I mean, aside from sticking it to the rich people, to me, it's really about like our generation punching up for once. This is like the first time like the millennial generation has had a active effect, I feel like, on the generation that has made all the rules above them. And it's kind of us testing the waters of seeing what we can get away with. And that's exciting to me because I frankly can't wait for the day that our generation moves into being the ones in control, because I think we're gonna do a much better job than people before us.
They probably thought that too.
True. I know. I realize that maybe sound hypocritical, but I also think...
Or did they? I don't know. I don't know that there was a lot of like idealism or like certainly in the 60s, baby boomers wanted to tackle societal ills, but boy, does it feel like nearly all of that has burned off. They
just kind of settled into their position.
Yeah.
I think my rationale is mostly from the kind of global nature that is our generation, from having access to the internet at a young age.
More community.
Yeah, we've got a much better sense of community and perspective, and like a lot of weird stuff. Like we're a lot more, I think, progressive in how obviously the internet's also a place for a lot of feud and strife, but I don't know. I am more hopeful about the next wave of executives than I have been for a while. And so it's cool to see this little revolution happening via memes, because it really goes to show that like the future is very unpredictable if you're gonna count memes as a qualifying factor for it. So,
well, it's the thing that when I was watching it happen, I kept asking myself, how has this not happened earlier? Mm-hmm. Because this stuff has existed for about 5 years now. The commission-free, trade stocks whenever you want on an app type thing. And I was actually really surprised that subreddits hadn't formed or communities hadn't formed that were, like you said, just memeing stocks and being like, everybody buy this one. And so this was just a perfect confluence of events because it's GameStop, so gamers, right? Yeah. And then also that hedge funds, that there are a bunch of really savvy investors in Wall Street Bets that realized what was going on and were like, oh, the system is so fucking broken. We could easily turn this around if just a few of us did this. Mm-hmm. And not only did they do that, but then they also, then it turned into memes. Last week it just turned into buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that. And it was just a bunch of stocks that were going up because, maybe 500,000 people on Reddit were all buying those stocks. It was really, really cool. I was just watching it develop minute by minute, and was just blowing my mind.
So Bruce, everyone was expecting that, Melvin Capital would be completely dissolved because of this. Has that happened?
No. They're down. So they're down about 50%, which is huge.
That is huge. Holy shit.
That's massive, because we're talking billions of dollars lost. However, Lawrence, you'll be happy to know that other old boomers came in and bailed them out.
I remember chatting about it with some people.
Always together strong.
As the weeks went by, I didn't want to rain on anyone's parade, but there were some people like, this is it. The whole system's going to come crashing on down. No. And in the back of my head, I'm just like, man.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
They made the system. And the rules didn't exist outside of rich people creating the system. They made it. So they can just change the system. And they did. So now they're going to put in rules to prevent the peasants from grabbing their pitchforks and coming at the castle again.
Yeah, but also, I think now that we've a little chink in the armor has been demonstrated, it's possible to do that again. And it spurred a lot of interest in people that always took this as a foregone conclusion. Like, the system is always going to be this way and we can't do anything about it. And now seeing that, okay, we did do something about it and it did change a little bit, who knows? Maybe the right people will start asking the right questions or doing the right research and making a difference.
Lawrence, I see people in chat kind of going one way or the other with you, which is always like, well, if the whole system crashed, we'd all be out of a job, which is probably true, by the way. If the whole system crashed, there'd be a serious problem. And then also there was well, no, you can't do anything. You can't change anything. Clearly they own the system. It's no. There's a middle ground in there. And it's what Criken just said, which is things will change. But they change gradually, and that's usually the way the world works. It's not often that there's some huge event that changes everything for everybody in the world. Usually it's a gradual change. And this is good. This is a big event.
So yeah, what I think it means is that the way that this has to, I guess, play out is that the people who have had their interest piqued by this episode maybe get into investing or into finance in a more official way. They learn the hooks, they learn the system. What I'm fascinated about is after you gain that mastery and you really learn the way that the decks are stacked, after you put in all that effort, are you still going to be motivated by trying to affect a public change? Or at that point you're like, oh, this is how I can make money. And then you just go do that. Because that's kind of what I think it is. It's a
great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question, Lawrence.
I don't want to question anyone's dedication to the cause, comrade. If you want to take down the rich, believe me, I'm behind you 100%. But I think it kind of, I think baked in that sentiment is a tiny bit of, maybe not hubris, but a bit of an assumption, because you're coming against people who have been doing this for decades, and they know the slimy ways because they are slimy. So it's fun to think that you can beat them at their own game right off the bat, and that's kind of what happened. It was a sucker punch basically. But now that the gloves are up, it's a whole other game. So I don't know. I'd like to think it's going to turn into something, but part of me wonders how much of that through age and years of learning the system just turns into, oh, I can be rich too. Yep. Because I think that happens to pretty much everybody, which is fine.
I ranted on this last week, because we were talking about this whole Wall Street bets thing, and then I ranted on exactly that point, which was, are you going to get swayed by greed? Because that's what currently controls the world, and that's what the Occupy Wall Street movement was about, and all that other stuff. And everybody, it's really easy to say greed is bad, because yeah, of course, we all know greed is bad, but you get caught up in it. Are you the one that, when nobody's watching, are you making the decisions that's fucking somebody else over in order to make you rich? Is that you? Because if you're the person doing that, then you also are part of the problem. And that's the That was the thing that I like. The long and the short of it for me was like, just think about the decisions you make when no one else is watching. That's you.
Yeah, it's really insightful, I think. It kind of reminds me of people who are mad at scalpers. Be mad at them. They fucking suck. But you have to care about that after you get your PS5. Like, you get a PS5, you just have to still be mad about it. And then you have to, like, petition Congress, write to your congressperson, try to get legislation introduced. You got to follow that stuff, and it's going to take years. So, yeah, I get it. You go to Twitter and you vent, man, fuck scalper, somebody got to do something. And then, you get your PS5 and you're like, great, I'm good, peace. Like, you guys can handle it now. Mm-hmm. So it's gotta be, yeah, it takes the system, it governs the lives of billions of people, or millions, I guess. No, there's billions of people in the United States. So it's
in
only
the United States, there's 330 million.
Never mind.
In the United States.
Yeah, was it 8 billion in the world, but
I think in China there's 1 billion people.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you no, Zach is correct. I did get a GTX 3000, but I wasn't necessarily mad about scalping. I was just like, well, what can you do? But I mean, what I can do is learn how to use bots and like try to play that game too, and that's the free market, I guess. But yeah, I think you do need a little staying power, and you need the humility and the endurance to change the system. And I don't know that one-time demonstrations are enough for that, because the people who benefit from the system are very comfortable, and all they have to do is sit back and wait for people to lose their endurance. And I know that I should stop externalizing. I don't think I have the endurance to do something like that, to like champion legislation and try to get it pushed through so people can buy shoes or PlayStation 5s. I don't know that I care enough to dedicate a portion of my life to getting that done. Mm-hmm. It sucks, but I don't know. I guess hopefully I'm just being honest and it doesn't sound terrible. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to cut my rates again. Oh, God damn it! Motherfucker. I don't know, Criken, do you have strong opinions about bots and scalping and stocks or anything like that?
I mean, I think you nailed it in terms of people that aren't in a position to employ greed on a grand scale, being able to do it on a micro scale, because that's what they have access to. It's almost kind of a universal like human, I guess, flaw or like corruptive influence, and it's just kind of at what scale you're able to do it. Unless, I mean, I don't really know if there's a better way to tackle that aside from like education and a system that doesn't reward it quite as much. But that's hard stuff to change. And to Lawrence's point, I don't think many people are really willing to dedicate their whole lives to push for meaningful change that may never actually come and they won't even see in their lifetime. That's kind of a bleak, that's a tall order.
And what you're describing is what our politicians are supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's also what they rely on. They rely on people not wanting to get involved because it's allowing them to stay in their kind of sphere of influence. And, they can make a deal that gets them rich and everyone looks the other way because, it's annoying to have to look. So,
well, they're supposed to be our advocates.
They're champions,
They're the ones that are supposed to be out there. Like, again, that's their job, is going out there and doing what Lawrence just said, passing legislation and making our lives better. Obviously, that's not the case for most of them. So sometimes it's left to us to try and change the system. And I saw somebody in my chat say, way to change it is just nobody uses Robinhood anymore. And they're right. If everybody stopped using Robinhood, well, then that would shut down Robinhood, because Robinhood was a major player in this whole thing. And that's what I was saying again when I was on my little rant, was like, if you really hate, Disney or Marvel or whatever, you can't be like, I hate Disney, and then go watch a movie and be like, I hated it. It's like, no, dude, you got to just not see it. Mm-hmm. Like you have to shut down any of that whether or not how much you want to see the next Marvel movie, just don't go do it. Don't spend the money, because that's the only thing that these people understand.
And then I think the notion you have to accept after that is that your desires are too small to change the nature of things, specifically in regards to Marvel. I didn't mean about anything else, because I'll never talk somebody out of activism. But if you're like, God, I just hate these Marvel movies, I gotta stop making them. Everybody stop watching them. And then you stick to your guns, right? Avengers 18 comes out, and you're at home with your arms crossed. Stupid Marvel, but it's gonna make billions and billions of dollars, and people, they might be getting tired of it, and they might dunk on it online or whatever, but it still makes some money. It still employs people. It still puts cash in the Kennedy pockets. So, or maybe not Kennedy, the Feige pockets. But yeah, it's that to me. That's almost philosophically a tough thing to square. Is to kind of realize that maybe your position isn't the strongest and most represented, and then just being okay with that. Like sitting with the fact that my desires are not represented by a majority of people, so what I want is probably not going to happen. And Joker style, that's living in a society, baby. You can't have it all your way. And to some degree, philosophically, that's the point of politics, is that it's compromise. You get 50% of what you want, they get 50% of what they want. Nobody's happy, but at least nobody's killing each other or threatening to. So yeah, it's I don't know. I was remarking about that earlier, but these are the kind of emotional processes that are at play now that my youthful testosterone and natural aggression is starting to fade away.
Boner rage is gone.
It's
replace it with a new rage.
like
Boomer rage.
Boomer rage. Oh man.
Somebody did mention, Yando mentioned in chat that more like it's easier to be more active when you have more free time. Sounds like an obvious thing. But if you're working a job, if you're a poor, as we call them, and you have to work 50 hours a week and have a side hustle, yeah, you don't have a lot of time to spare to think about town hall meetings and
you don't
writing
have the luxury for a proletariat revolution.
That was part of the commentary with the GameStop thing. So we have all these people at home with too much time on their hands and free government checks conspiring about how to lash out against the rich. Well, yeah, it's awesome. Sorry, dog. Maybe if you didn't want people conspiring to overthrow you, throw them some money now and then. Mm-hmm. I've read a couple of articles from sociologists that basically track societal instability factors, and so much of those have to deal with equitable distribution of wealth. And it's just gone way too far off the rails in the United States, especially. So a lot of this unrest, you can plot it against the stars. It's fairly predictable, but it's all just individuals acting in their interest. No rich person is going to say, "Wait a minute, if I take more money, we might be dealing with a little uprising." Nah, that rich person's going to fucking swipe it. They're going to go go back to their golded house with their
if the
gold-plated
revolution
car.
does happen, if they have the money, they can build a bigger wall around their property, and therefore, the proletariat don't get in unless there's enough of them that they can build a body wall and climb over it, like in War Z. So it's kind of that's the gamble. Business is a gamble. It's how many angry poor people will it take for them to scale my golden wall?
Yeah, how tall of a golden wall do you want to build?
Yeah.
That's financially, that's essentially what we saw, right? People throwing themselves against the walls of the castle, which maybe that's what protests and uprising look now. It's all moved onto the internet, and it's all in finance. You can hurt the people you don't like. I think that's better, right? Isn't that better than people
real violence? Yeah.
Than people charging a castle and getting oil poured on them because they're starving.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's what I thought was so cool about this, was that not only was this again, a very small revolution of sorts, but it was all done within the rules of the game. And that's what I loved about this. None of this was illegal. I know people are like, "Oh, this is like a kind of a pump and dump." No, it wasn't. Pump and dumps are people who have a vested interest in those things. These are just people spending their money. Yep. And that's what was so cool about it, is all done within the rules of the system.
Do you foresee it happening again, or do you now that a lot of the poor people trading options are being limited? Do you think that's only going to motivate people to try to find the next loophole to try to land another hit? on the.
I hope so. I think. Well, the other side of this is because of this group movement. There's not really like a singular head of it. Like I get there's the Reddit board that this originated on, and they've kind of been a guiding factor and has helped a lot. But from transitioning from this to whatever the next thing is, I wonder if it's gonna retain the same momentum or the same like focus when it's just kind of a collective of perception rather than an actual manifesto, so it's a little bit harder to unite people around that, I guess, unless it's just done through memes, which is, I think, the fascinating thing is like technically that's kind of what happened, right? It wasn't like here is a really clear documented reason as to why we're doing this and how this is going to affect the market and this, like, sure, those posts kind of exist, but it was propagated to the majority of the people that actually went through with it from memes and from seeing everyone else do it. So it could just be best meme wins. It could be like, down the road, if this were to happen again, it's going to come from a really good,
oh Christ,
really good image.
Criken, you just made the future of finance snap into my head. Financial institutions are going to hire meme makers to try to create rushes on.
They're already doing that.
I guess I was foolish to think that wasn't already a thing.
Well, I mean, like that's the what's going to.
I saw a lot of that in crypto, trying to get meme investments off the ground.
100%. They're still. I mean, it's still happening. But most likely, what's going to happen is, and this sort of stuff happens every few years, especially with the internet. The cycle has sped up, but Reddit found the loophole, right? And so then they fought that loophole. And so what happens is Wall Street, the boomers, are going to close that loophole, but Reddit's going to find another loophole, and then you're basically like testing the defenses over and over,
right?
That's what's most likely going to happen. They'll close the loopholes for this specific one, but then they'll find another loophole. I think that's the whole point of the systems that we've built, is that they're not perfect. They can be improved, and if this stuff is done legally, then why not? I don't know.
Here's what I want, and I know now that I was thinking through it, and I know it's already a terrible idea, but I want it anyway. I want somebody to set up a financial institution designed to troll the shit out of other financial institutions. That's all it does. It loses money. And the way that it operates is it takes like micropayments from everyone who's pissed off like me. So I want to send like $1 a month.
Reverse pyramid scheme.
Yeah. It's a crowdfunding trolling, basically. I want to send $1 a month, and hopefully hundreds of thousands of other people want to send $1 a month to an institution that is dedicated to flushing shitty investors out of the market. The problem is the people running that could just take all the money invested and keep all the cash.
Yeah,
so there'd have to be communal like
checks and balances, a kill switch on the leader. And at any moment, if they take out more than $10 from an ATM, then
I feel like
the next one down the list gets nominated. This is how I imagine it. It's a hierarchy where you can randomly get tapped with the code to access this bank account. And if there's an inkling from anyone else in the corporation or this organization that you're abusing your power, they press the kill switch, goes to the next one in the line. And it's this cannibalistic beast.
You're describing the One Ring. Yes. That's what that is.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Let's make the One Ring of finance.
Somebody mentioned that, and I thought it was a pretty astute insight that, I mean, in regards to finding the loopholes, financial institutions have, rich people dedicated to doing that for years and years and years. So I'm not super, I don't think finding loopholes is the answer. I think it's about catching people when they're too complacent. That's kind of what it feels like to me. That's the goal now.
That's right.
So hedge fund investors, they got complacent because they thought they were protected. They thought they had a pretty insular thing going, and then suddenly the eye of Sauron, to extend the analogy, turned on them, and they weren't ready.
Are we the eye? Hell yeah!
I think so.
The many eyes of Sauron.
if enough pores get together. I'm basically talking about Bitcoin. Yeah, the way that it's organized. You're right. Except Bitcoin. Well, I guess Bitcoin was made depending on your philosophical underpinnings, Bitcoin was made as a try to usurp the current monetary system.
That's what it's made for. Yep.
Yeah. Now it just spills carbon into the atmosphere for no reason, which is cool, very cool.
Yeah. Right.
But I can respect the intent.
Why are we so, as a human race, so intent on killing ourselves as fast as possible? Just on like a cosmic scale, we're just hurtling towards the heat death of the universe on our own terms
and accelerating. Yeah. I've wondered about that because I've seen this that may or may not be linked to conversation topics we talked about before this podcast, but I've seen it in business senses of like there's something that isn't earning money and isn't growing, but then I've seen companies dedicate even more fully to it, and there's a variety of human factors there, but accelerating into the crash is a thing that I've noticed with a lot of people in the human race. It's a very bizarre one. As near as I can tell, sometimes people want so badly to believe that something's not true that they act in the exact opposite way to prove to themselves that it isn't. So, if I'm a chronic smoker and then I get a cough, I could see myself smoking even more to prove to myself I don't have lung cancer or anything like that. And of course, you make it way worse for yourself. But I've seen that behavior happen quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's not great. I've often wondered about that. If humanity's on a raft and we only have so much water left, and I'm the guy saying, guys, we got to ration this water, and somebody else is saying like, fuck it, we're tired of these rules. Let's throw a water party and splash each other all over the place. Everybody's probably going to go with a water party guy, and I'm going to sit there being like, oh god, we're going to die while everybody's having like a water gun fight.
It's because that water party sounds awesome.
It does. We need
Maybe
a water party.
Think of a water party idea to save water then, Lawrence. All right, put your mouth where your mouth is. Okay.
Well, here, what you're describing is, and it has a phrase. You're describing capitalism with a conscience. So you got to throw a really badass water party that plants 1 million trees. So imagine that you're like playing around with water out in the forest, but you're also planting trees. So ideally, whatever. Ideally, you come up with something that frays the carbon cost of what you're doing, and actually, maybe there's a positive effect to the environment rather than a negative.
What if instead of water we used dry?
That does not sound like fun.
A sand
and
fight?
We save the water. Yeah. And then we save the water for not the party.
That's better. That's a good compromise.
So you can either go to the wasteful water party, or you can come to Lawrence's sand party, in which we acknowledge that there's not
a sand party?
much water.
It's just handfuls of sand. Whoosh, right in your face. No
you
water
get
at all.
Complimentary
Just
pocket sand when you show up.
You get a mouthful of sand. Too bad.
Yeah.
No water here.
Try to make a sand castle, but you can't use water. You just got to use pile enough sand.
Guys, you know the quote, but I'm going to say it anyways. I hate sand. It gets everywhere.
Right. But if it is already everywhere, then what's there to hate, you know?
Bruce, what if money got everywhere? Would you still not like it?
Ooh,
that sounds great. That sounds
Following
great.
your same logic, Bruce.
So think about
Now you
sand
hate
like money. You like
Why
that
do you hate
money,
money,
right?
Bruce?
Yeah.
You hate money?
Thinking about sand like money, but sand has to be money.
Well, you can have as much fun with it if you catch a big mouthful of it.
If you shred it up and then you make it into little granular bits, then now it's sand. It's all just perspective.
What are you guys talking about?
I'm going to hit you in the face with a sand ball, and you're going to have so much fun crying out all those razor sharp shards of sand from your eyes that you'll forget all about being poor. Yeah, it'll be in your mouth too. It'll be gritty. It'll crunch. You know when you're eating something that's not crunchy, but there's one crunchy bit in it, and it makes you die? Ugh. That happened to me. Like I think it was a peppercorn that didn't get properly ground up, but I was just like eating a salad or whatever, and you're like, oh, salad texture, this is all right, and then I crunched, and I'm like, my spirit shot out of my body and flew into space, and it hasn't come back since.
Yeah. That, especially with meat, that's what does it for me. If there's like a little crunch, and you're like, well, whatever that was, it can't be good.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
well, it's in me now.
The rest of it.
That happened to me all the time as a kid. Just eating things and then there'd be dirt because I was a kid.
Well, that's because you were a kid. Yeah. Like that's like when you go to the beach and you eat a sandwich and you get sand in your sandwich.
Ugh, it's just crunchy. Ugh.
And you can't bite through it because it's like you really can't. It's a rock, so your teeth can't bite through it, but it's still there, and you can. Oh, so gross.
I love those things. Those bits that are so baked into our DNA that for some reason it's just the absolute worst. The stepping on a Lego. There was another one that hit me the other day. I mean, getting any kind of moisture on your sock is pretty bad. But something. You ever like? This isn't quite the same, but it is a moral quandary. And actually, no, wait, I've talked about that one before. You know when you're peeing, but your beam isn't quite established when you first start, so you kind of have that wild spray at the beginning. I was going in for it, and yeah, it was, I don't know, things were stuck together. Only one picturesque perfect raindrop of drip flew outside of bounds and landed directly on my big toe, which was exposed. I wasn't wearing a sock, thank God. But the whole entire time that I'm relieving myself, I have that mixture of disgust with myself, but also relief because I'm using the bathroom. Not a good place. But then I have to figure out, what am I going to do now? Do I throw my foot in the sink and wash it off with soap and water? Do I just like rub it on the back of my
No, Criken's right.
pant
You
leg?
cut off your toe.
It's gone?
Yeah.
That's your toe. That's it.
Shoot, do I have to do that retroactively? No?
Well, if it's dried, then it's okay. Then the dirty goes away when it dries.
So I have to take all of my I got to take all my knives and put them in a lockbox so that I can't reach them until my toe is dried.
Right.
Okay. That seems fair. Ooh, trimming your fingernails and then rubbing them over a nice soft towel with a sensitive nail beds. Ooh.
Oh. Ugh.
You don't like that feeling?
I don't think I've ever done that. For some reason, it just sparked a terrible reaction.
Nail bed is not a word I like.
The nail bed, yeah, that's just.
Well, the little like you don't yank your fingernails out, but when they've grown out and then there's that little finger bit that doesn't touch anything for a while, you trim it back and then you're just like. Ugh. Do you guys ever get to the point where it's not quite like tickling, but a physical stimulation that's so intense it kind of paralyzes you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever? I don't know how, like, at the bottom of your feet, if they're ticklish or not. But if you do that, if you like try to tickle your own feet, it sometimes will it'll literally just make you pause. Like you said, it'll paralyze you, Lawrence. Are your feet like that? Because my feet are like that in specific spots if I touch them the right way.
And I'm tickling a little bit right now. I've discovered I'm very ticklish in certain spots because it is. And I feel bad because sometimes, like, Steph has understood this about me. I don't think I was touched very much as a kid, which is why it seems so overstimulating now, maybe. But Steph knows she has that power over me. She can just like poke me, and I'll just like I'll just kind of freak out. I'm worried that I'm gonna spasm and elbow her in the face in one of these days. So I have hyperreflexia. Oh, is that a thing? Maybe there's a word for how weird I am. I'm gonna Google this now.
Criken, are you ticklish?
Not really, no. But I also have like very long, spindly fingers that
maybe I don't have that.
Used for much of my upbringing to torture those around me that either from tickling or, like tasering, where you walk behind someone and go like this.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, what is it?
Mine were always the most effective.
You like poke their sides.
Oh, you like go into the ribs?
Well, it's like down here, like the hips, right? Kind of the squishy part. You just go in and you're like, and then they're like, and they like freak out. I was always an absolute fiend when it came to those activities because my fingers, I could get everywhere, and they would just grab in and not let go because I had the gamer claws, like
got those plumber's hands.
Muscles. Yeah. So
are you double jointed?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, okay. All right.
That would only make it worse.
I know. I was worried, like, if you could pop your fingers backwards and forwards, and you're basically like a witch, Criken.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Oh man, Lawrence, I didn't know you were ticklish. Now I'm not going to tickle you, but I didn't know that about you.
You should explore.
I won't make that same promise. Yeah.
Yeah. I welcome all comers. Again, I I've tried to warn you.
Welcome all comers.
Comers, I know. Yeah, Coomers
Hey,
is what he said.
It's interesting that I'm getting in the operatic sex for hire business, given how sensitive I am to physical touch. But again, I warn you,
It's
Criken.
true.
I know.
You give me the taser, and I can't. Like, my body might spasm and hit you, and it's not
Okay.
because I want to hit you. It's just because my body like jolts and jerks whenever I don't
Yeah.
know. Whenever I'm kind of
Apparently, when I am reaching a restful state, I become violent. My body, extends to its fullest potential, and I have hurt many
Really?
sleeping partners. Not hurt, but like surprise them in like there'll be a jolt, and I'm just like.
I think
like
that
an
happens to
arms,
everybody.
Just like
Doesn't it?
flies
Yeah.
out. I don't know. I've heard apparently it's not everyone.
Oh.
I feel like I've noticed it more in my later years. I don't know however old I am now, working backwards like 2 years. That's when I've noticed it more. So maybe it's just not sleeping well. But
No, I do the same thing because when you're falling asleep sometimes and like your body will just spasm and
Yeah.
it'll like jerk you awake. Occasionally I do that. I'm like, what the fuck? Just is that an earthquake? Because usually, since I've lived here for so long, it's like usually that's an earthquake that will jolt you awake like that. But
True.
then I'm like, oh, that was just me, and I just fall back asleep.
do you guys what notes have you gotten about your fugue state? Because you don't know what you're like when you're sleeping, but your body and your brain sure are doing things sometimes. So have you learned anything about yourself that seems otherworldly? I am a hot sleeper, and I can thrash around a bit. It's weird because for a while I would go to sleep on my left side. It was just my comfortable side, and that's just where it was. And then I would wake up in another position, but for some reason I would never think about what happened between those 2 points. So in my mind, I'm like, I just go, and then I stay there until I wake up magically. A little bird rests on my windowsill. The sun crests the horizon. Wake up, big double arm stretch, time to start my day. But no, apparently while I'm sleeping, I'm thrashing around, I'm rolling, I'm readjusting. I didn't know any of that. And
I do that. I also talk in my sleep sometimes.
Me too.
I do entire monologues.
Me too.
It's often been very presentative, like a performance.
Oh, like you're doing a presentation.
Yeah, almost all the time. I'm almost positive it's whatever brain muscle that streaming is like, and now permanently embedded in the back of my brain and making me do this. But yeah, there's been really weird. I've been told really weird phrases that I've expressed in my sleep.
Oh yeah.
And I'm very convinced of them. I'm always like 100% passionate and very confident. And
Nice.
and other people, they'll be like really caught up in it because they like think I'm either being really serious, like something really serious just happened, or like they're trying to follow what I'm saying because I'm like, you cared so much that I cared too, and I needed to hear what you were saying because I was very, very like careful with what I said.
Wow. I definitely talk in my sleep, and I think I've talked about this on content before, but I'll tell the stories again. Once a week, well, no, let's say once a month. Once a month, I wake up thinking that there are blank on me. So spiders, snakes, rats, whatever. And like we're talking about fully awake, lights on, searching through the sheets
Yeah.
for these animals that were on me. And then Autumn will go, because Autumn now has seen this so many times. She goes, there's nothing. She'll look at me because I'm still asleep usually with my eyes open, looking through the sheets. And she'll go, Bruce, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. You're fine. There's nothing there. And she like has to talk me down. And then my conscience, like literally my consciousness kicks in and I go, oh, fuck, like I'm awake. And I'm like, what happened? Like, why am I? And I still know, by the way, when I'm awake, finally, I knew what I was doing. I knew I was looking through the sheets. I knew I felt like there were things on me. But then when I am finally awake, I go, fuck. And I'm so thoroughly convinced that I still look through the sheets because I'm like, I fucking swear. This just happened to me like a couple of days ago. I swear a rat. I heard a rat running down like the floorboards of our room and then jump on my blanket and sniff me. I swear I felt it. Because I woke up and like flipped out, did the whole deal. And I was like looking around the blankets. I was like, I fucking swear. I was like, I swear. And throughout the entire day, I was looking for rat droppings. Because I was like, my brain is playing tricks on me, or there was a rat.
Do you think it's like night terrors or not quite that specific?
It's not night terrors. It's like what I've read actually about these dreams is that generally it's because a lot of little things are stressing you out.
Yeah.
If it's like insects or spiders or whatever, it's like usually little things.
Sure.
I think rats or snakes are different. I got to look those up, but usually it's just that you're just stressed out. It's usually what it boils down to. But my brain is so good at convincing me that something happened, even though it didn't. It's so weird. It is so weird.
Do you think that that's maybe an early warning sign, Bruce? That you might be a little stressed? Maybe you gotta.
It's a good question, Lawrence. I've been having these for 10 years. So I don't know about an early warning sign unless it's like a disease.
I don't think does it count as an early warning sign if we already know we're stressed and like it's not gonna.
Well, that's true.
I already know that to be true. It's already 100%. So
no. Well, that's not good.
I don't need another warning sign. It's not good. What am I going to do about it? Life's stressful.
Go to Bermuda, man. No, wait, you can't. Never mind.
Well, you can't right now, but yeah.
It sounds so trite, but sometimes, especially, I may be generalizing a bit here, but Bruce, Criken, me, we're the doers. You know, we do things. We get shit done.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the drawback of that is we don't know how to not do things. And as silly as it sounds, I think it really is it's something that takes effort to actually stop doing things and even in that moment to put yourself in the headspace to not freak out about the things you're not doing. So anyway, I'm just concerned. I've been thinking a lot about these things over the past 6 months or so. So that's kind of where my head's at.
I appreciate you being concerned, Lawrence. That's I really do. That's like I said, I've been experiencing these for a very long time. They're kind of off and on too. Like I'll go through phases of them, and
yeah, I've had some crazy dreams. They've only ramped up this last year. I've started keeping a dream journal because they are so incredibly in depth. They're like feature length, like lengths and levels of detail, and then afterwards I try to account as much as I can. But yeah, it's fucked, man. I especially like if you're creative or you work in a creative line of work, I think your brain is even more dangerous when it's unleashed and it has no confines. Because oh man.
Yeah.
That's something that's been a personal project of me lately, is to give myself space to not do anything, and then also to not try and question, control, or direct my natural being, to kind of put myself in a vacuum and see what comes out. I'm pretty familiar with myself, or at least I like to think so, but it's a unique thing. Because I've been working a job since I'm 14. I feel like 2020 is the first year I've been able to actually not work for any amount of time. And even then I'm streaming like every day. So,
well, that's still work,
That is work.
I should consider it work in my head. Maybe that's the other thing, is there's things I do that I tell myself aren't work, but maybe they are. Maybe they are.
It'll get you in a different way, like even if I'm glad that you don't feel like it's work, Lawrence, that's great. But it'll exhaust you in another way. It may not be the traditional way you're used to, but
yeah, it's a different muscle. Yeah. And then you're in a situation like me where it's the only muscle I'm exercising, and so all I'm doing is streaming and then sleeping, and then it's the equivalent of like having one really strong right arm and then everything else being weak. So now I need to figure out balance again.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, you guys should go do nothing, except I'm not, so I can't say that. But I do think we've hit the end of the podcast, unless you guys had any topics you wanted to dive into.
Oh, by the way, we didn't do the intro. Welcome to Talk to the Internet. There we go.
There it is.
Got it.
Thank you for listening to Talk to the Internet.
It's just got to be in there somewhere. Those are FTC guidelines. We don't make the rules. We just play by it. Well, thank you all very much in the audience. Bruce, Criken, you guys as well. Thank you guys late title card. Exactly. I gotta.
Oh yeah, really late.
I gotta throw that logo over it. But I do like talking with you guys. It's been.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Oh my God, we gotta be at least a few months away, right? We can
close.
all get a needle in
We're
our
close.
arm, and then we can be in a room together again.
We're close.
Yeah. Sure.
We're close.
I've heard some worrying things about the estimation for LA. So
Come
just choose not to believe
on. 6 months away. Come on.
yeah, sure.
Come on, guys.
If enough old people choose not to get it because I don't know why, then they're gonna have all these vaccines left over, and they got to go somewhere, right?
Come
Yeah,
on,
we'll just
guys.
look after them for a few days. Like we know how to apply the vaccine.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna give myself 3, so I'm extra good.
And the more, the better. Each one adds a year onto your life.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I guess
course.
we'll maybe be back next week or not. I kind of
think
like
next week-
Kind of like being
next week-
mysterious. Oh yeah. Wait.
Next week, I know that I can't do it, but I mean, you guys could for sure if you wanted to.
Oh.
Me and Lawrence one-on-one.
Whatever you want to do. Whatever
Push
you
Shaw
wanna
out of
do.
that, Bruce.
Damn.
The pause and then just
Lawrence, damn.
No, Lawrence, no, don't listen to me, Lawrence. I was doing a bit. It's okay,
know.
Lawrence. We can hang out.
I was too. I gotta. Again, I gotta bank up this. I gotta make myself out to be a sad sack. So when that GoFundMe hits the internet, I'll shoot off. And then I
That's
take all
right,
that
dude.
money, put it in a hedge fund. I'm set.
That's it in
Monetize that
GameStop.
goodwill. That's what it's all about.
All right, well, thank you guys very much, and I guess I'll be streaming titty anime games pretty shortly here.
Hell yeah.
Bruce, you got streaming plans today?
Hitman. Ooh. I'm gonna beat Hitman on the hardest difficulty with no guns. That's what I'm gonna do.
Ooh,
Silent
suit
assassin.
only or no suit only?
Wait, what do you mean no suit only? What are you talking about?
Suit only is a special challenge.
Oh
Yeah, you can't
shit! I
change
haven't.
clothes.
Yeah, never change
Oh
clothes.
my gosh, I have not tried that. Oof.
Yeah.
Just do the thing where
That's-
you like go into the stage and whip a brick into the air, and then 8 seconds later your target's killed and you can leave. Just do that for like every stage. It's easy.
Jeez.
I love the new Hitman game so much. It was.
Oh, it's
I-
awesome.
I
It's so much
adored
fun. Yeah, it is so much fun. Criken, what are you streaming?
I am donning my virtual fursuit of my VTuber avatar, who is a giant fat rat, and I'm gonna play the Skaven in Warhammer 2,
Nice.
or Total War Warhammer 2. So
Nice.
I like that. Couple notes. Furries are never fat. So
well,
you
I'm changing the visual.
It's a good point.
Language. I'm trying to move the needle. Because every VTuber that I've ever seen are like just this hot little anime girl, like this, fucking, like, yeah. And so I'm like, what if I made a fat corporate rat that is as far from any standard of beauty as possible, and it's purely just a character.
all pandas
and
are
it's been a lot of
furry.
fun.
That's a good point, Staff. I was more thinking about like the just roided out wolves with crazy abs. To me, when I think of furry, I think about the hottest anthropomorphic animals that nature
Absolutely.
can provide. Yeah,
I don't think of the fat rat that Criken is.
gross. How are you going to get
It's a lot
into
of
that
fun.
furry market, Criken? You got to think about this.
Yeah,
There's a lot of money
yeah.
out there.
Yeah, furries got a lot of money. They have nothing else to spend it on but fantasy. So
Is that
gotta
true?
muscle in.
$2,500 fursuits. Yeah. Dude, furries make the economy go. Furries are responsible for at least 15% of America's
Well,
GDP.
The crazy thing, yeah, okay. The crazy thing is I had to get this model made, and it occurred to me at some point in the process that I'm essentially just doing that. I'm having my own fursuit commissioned for a
Yeah, of course.
exorbitant amount of money.
Yes.
Even though I don't identify as a furry, I have to embody one in this. Well, I don't really embody a furry, just embodying a rat. I think somewhere along the line has been blurred. Somewhere along
it
the
sounds like it.
yeah, it's like unclear what you define as a furry versus a literal animal. So
Well, it sounds like a day of importance and consequence for all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll all be back shortly, but thank you again for listening to the Talk to the Internet podcast. And we may or may not be back next week.
Who knows?
who knows? Not even us.
Who could say? All right. Bye, everybody.